It is late. You knew that before you clicked. This is the night docket. Every case in this file is something that happened to someone on the clock, in the hours when the rest of the world was asleep. Overnight shifts, empty buildings, the long quiet where help is far away and the doors do not lock the way you think they do. 3 cases tonight. Keep the lights low. We will begin. I worked the overnight register at a gas station off the interstate for almost 2 years. 10 at night until 6 in the morning. If you have never done it, the overnight shift at a place like that has a rhythm. The late truckers come through around 11. The bar crowd around 2. And then there is the long dead stretch from 3 to 5 where nothing moves at all, and it is just you, the hum of the coolers, and the lights out over the pumps. You learn to read the lot. You learn which cars belong and which ones do not. So I noticed the sedan the first night it came. It pulled in a little after 3 and parked at pump 6, the one farthest from the store, right at the edge of the light. Nobody got out. That happens sometimes. People pull in to sleep, or to look at their phone, or to argue with someone on the other end of a call. I did not think much of it. I went back to restocking the cigarettes behind the counter. When I looked up 20 minutes later, it was still there. Lights off, engine off. And I had the feeling, the way you sometimes just do, that whoever was inside was not looking at a phone. They were looking at the store. At me. I told myself I was tired. At 4:50 it pulled away, slow, and I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. The next night it came back. Same time, same pump, same nothing. On the 3rd night, one of my regulars was there when it pulled in. Earl, a long-haul driver who stopped most nights for coffee and a sandwich, and who talked to me like an uncle whether I wanted it or not. He was at the counter counting out change when the headlights swept across the window and the sedan rolled into pump 6. Earl went quiet. He watched it settle into the dark at the edge of the lot, and then he watched it for a while longer, and then he said, without looking at me, "How long has that car been coming around?" I told him 3 nights. He nodded slowly, like that confirmed something he did not like. He said, "When I pull out tonight, you lock this door behind me. You do not open it again for anybody who is not a paying customer walking up in the light where you can see them. You understand?" I laughed a little, because I did not know what else to do. He did not laugh. He wrote something on a napkin, his name and a phone number, and he slid it across the counter and told me to call him if that car was ever there when he was not, and he would turn around no matter how far down the road he was. Then he left, and I locked the door. The sedan stayed until 4:50, like always. But that night, for the first time, right before it pulled away, the interior light came on. Just for a second. Long enough for me to see that there was a man in the driver's seat, turned fully around in his seat to face the store, and that he was not moving at all. He was just watching. And when the light clicked off, the car did not leave right away. It sat there in the dark for another minute with me, knowing he could see me and me no longer able to see him. I did not sleep that day. I went in the next night sick to my stomach, and I told my manager. He was a decent guy, but it was a gas station, and what was he going to do? He said if it worried me, he would pull the footage from the lot camera and we would get a plate. That made me feel better. Plate is a real thing. A plate you can give to police. He went in the back to pull it up while I opened the register. And after a few minutes he came back out, and his face was wrong. He asked me, in a careful voice, what time did I say the car showed up. A little after 3, I told him. Every night. He turned the monitor around so I could see it. And there was the lot, and there was pump 6, and there was the sedan sitting exactly where it always sat. But it was not 3 in the morning on the screen. The timestamp said 9:40 at night. The car had already been there for hours before my shift even started. It had been arriving before I got there. It had been watching me walk in. And then my manager said the thing that I still think about. He said, "That is not the strange part." He rewound it further, all the way back to the afternoon, to bright daylight, 6 o'clock in the evening, cars coming and going, the lot full. The sedan was already there. parked at pump 6. Not moving. He checked the day before. It was there. He checked the day before that. That car had been sitting at the edge of our lot, in the same spot, for 6 days straight. Through daylight, through traffic, through the busiest hours, and nobody had noticed because nobody looks at the far pump in the daytime. It only became a person watching me when the lot emptied out and it was just the two of us. We called the police that night. When the officer walked out to pump 6 with his flashlight, the car was there. And it was empty, unlocked. No plates, front or back. Registration wiped out of the glove box. On the passenger seat there was a spiral notebook. And in the notebook, in small neat handwriting, page after page, was me. What nights I worked. What time I got there. What time I locked up. Which car in the lot was mine. There was a page that just listed over and over the times I walked out to the dumpster alone to break down the boxes at the end of my shift. They never found him. The car was reported stolen from 2 states away. I quit the next week. I still have Earl's napkin. I never had to call him, but I kept it because on the nights when I tell myself I imagine how bad it was, that napkin is the proof that a stranger took one look at that car and knew immediately what I had been too tired to let myself see. Floors, waste, spills, the jobs nobody wants to think about. I liked it. Nights in a hospital are calm in a way days never are. The lights get dimmed. The halls go soft and empty. You are mostly alone with the sound of the machines keeping people alive. The hospital had 7 floors. 6 of them were in use. The 6th floor was not. It had been an inpatient ward once, but it was shut down for a renovation that ran out of money. So it just sat up there, sealed off, dark, waiting for funding that never came. When you got in the service elevator, the button for 6 was there, but it was taped over and everybody knew the rule. You did not go to 6. There was nothing on 6 but drop cloths and dead air. My first week, an older woman named Denise trained me. She had cleaned that building for almost 30 years. On my last night with her, when we passed the taped over button, she told me the rule, the way you tell someone something you have decided to believe, is just superstition. She said, if the elevator ever takes you to 6 on its own, you do not get out. You press 1 and you ride it back down and you finish your shift on another floor and you do not tell anyone why. I asked her if that had ever happened to her. She did not answer. She just told me good night. For about a year, nothing. The elevator behaved. 6 stayed dark. Then one night in the winter, I was riding up from the basement with my cart, going to 4, and the elevator stopped climbing at 6. The doors opened. I want to be clear about how ordinary this felt for the first second. Elevators stop on the wrong floor all the time. I was already reaching for the button to close the doors when I looked up, out through the open doors into the 6th floor. It was not dark. Down at the far end of the hall, one room had its light on. A warm light spilling out of an open doorway onto the floor. And above that doorway, the little call light was lit. The light a patient turns on when they need a nurse. It was glowing red, steady, the way it does when someone has pressed the button and is waiting for someone to come. There were no patients on 6. There had not been for years. There was no power run to those rooms. I had been told that directly. The call light was on anyway, and someone had turned on a lamp in a room that had no lamp and left the door open, and pressed a button to call for help on a floor where no help was ever coming. I pressed 1. I pressed it so hard my thumb hurt, and the doors did not close. They stayed open, and from down that hall, from the lit room, I heard a voice, thin and old and tired. It called out the way a patient calls out in the dark when they have been waiting a long time and they have heard the elevator arrive. It said, hello, is someone there? I have been ringing. And then it said my name. Not a name it could have guessed. My name, the one on the ID badge clipped to my chest, which no one on that dark floor could have read from 100 feet away in a building where I had told no one I existed. I did the only thing my body would let me do. I backed into the corner of the elevator, as far from the doors as I could get, and I looked at the floor of the car so I would not have to look down that hall, and I begged the doors to close. And after what felt like a very long time, they did. And the car went down. I did not finish my shift on 4. I finished it in the basement, in the bright, loud laundry room, with my back to the wall, until the sun came up and the day staff filled the building with noise. I told Denise. It was the only time I ever saw her look afraid, and she was afraid for me, not of the story. She just nodded, like I had joined a club she was sorry existed. She told me it had taken almost 30 years to happen to her once. She said I should be careful, because in her experience, once 6 knew your name, the elevator liked to make the mistake again. I put in for a transfer to the day shift the next morning. I have never taken a night job since. And to this day, in any building, when an elevator stops on a floor I did not press, I do not get out. I press 1, and I ride it down, and I do not look up. I worked night security at a shipping yard down by the river. It was not a real security job, not the kind with training. It was one man, one booth, a bank of camera monitors, and a fence around about 4 acres of stacked shipping containers. My job was to sit in the booth from dusk to dawn, watch the cameras, and call a number if anything moved that should not. 16 cameras. I knew every angle by heart. The gate, the main lanes between the container stacks, the loading dock, the dark corners at the back of the yard where the fence met the water. On a normal night, nothing moved out there but cats and the occasional raccoon, and I would drink my coffee and watch the monitors and wait for morning. The night it happened started normal. Around 2 in the morning, I caught movement on camera 9, one of the back cameras, deep in the stacks. A figure, a person, walking slowly between 2 rows of containers, away from the camera. We got people trying to hop the fence sometimes, looking for something to steal or somewhere to sleep. Protocol was to call it in, not to go out. But the phone line to the dispatch number had been dead for 2 nights, something they kept promising to fix, so it was just me. And I figured it was some guy looking for a dry corner, and I could put a flashlight on him from a distance and scare him back over the fence without ever getting close. So I grabbed the flashlight and I went out. And here is the thing about that yard at night. It is a maze. The containers are stacked 3 high in long rows, and once you are down in the lanes, you cannot see over them, and every lane looks like every other lane. I got to where I had seen him on camera 9, and there was nobody there. Just the wet lane and the containers and the sound of the river. I went back to the booth, and when I sat down and looked at the monitors, he was on camera 4 now. A different part of the yard, closer to the booth. Same slow walk, facing away. I told myself he was just moving through, looking for a way out. I watched him on 4 until he walked out of frame, and then he appeared on camera 6. Closer, and then camera 8. Closer. He was working his way toward the booth. But that was not the part that made my hands go cold. The part that made my hands go cold was that the cameras are spread across 4 acres. Camera 9 to camera 4 is a 2-minute walk. 4 to 6 is another minute. But he was appearing on each one only seconds after leaving the last, as if the distance between them meant nothing. As if he could be at the back of the yard and near my booth in the time it took me to blink. And he never once faced the camera. On every single feed, no matter the angle, he was turned away. You cannot do that by accident across 16 cameras pointing in 16 directions. To always have your back to the lens, you would have to know exactly where every camera was and turn deliberately for each one. He was not wandering. He was showing me that he knew the yard better than I did, that he had been here before, many times. Then, all at once, he was on every monitor. 16 cameras, 16 angles, and on every one of them, the same figure standing still now, back to the lens in 16 different parts of the yard at the same time. I know how that sounds. I looked at those screens and my mind simply refused it. There was one of him. There had to be one of him. But there he was everywhere all at once, standing perfectly still. And then, on all 16 screens at the same moment, he turned his head. Not his body, just his head, starting to come around toward the cameras, about to show me his face on every screen in the booth at once. I did not wait to see it. I killed the monitors. I put my back against the door and I sat on the floor of that booth in the dark with my eyes shut and the flashlight gripped in both hands. And I told myself that when I opened my eyes it would be morning. And that is when the knock came on the booth door, right behind my head. Slow, patient, 3 times. From the outside of a locked booth, in the middle of a yard where, 1 minute earlier, the same man had been standing in 16 places at once. I did not open it. I do not know how long I sat there. I know that I did not move until the sky went gray and I heard the morning crew rattling the front gate. When they found me, I was still on the floor. The manager watched the recording with me that afternoon. All 16 channels. 2 in the morning onward. There was no one in the yard. The lanes were empty all night. No figure on 9. No figure on 4. Nothing on any of the 16 feeds at any point except me on the gate camera, walking out into the stacks alone with a flashlight, and coming back a few minutes later at a dead run. I never worked another night in that booth, and I have never been able to explain how I sat there and watched a man walk toward me across 4 acres on cameras that, the next day, showed an empty yard. All I know is what I heard through the door, and a recording cannot tell me I did not hear that. 3 cases closed. There are always more. The night docket files a new case twice a week. If you made it this far, subscribe and turn on the bell so the next one finds you. Sleep with a light on if you need to. We understand. This has been the night docket. The file is never really closed.